Welcome to this webinar on must-have visual effects in Apple Final Cut Pro 10. My name is Larry Jordan. I'm delighted to be with you. You know, a few weeks ago when Boris offered me the opportunity to do this webinar, I was really excited because I get to give you a sneak peek at a pre-release version of Boris Continuum Complete, version 8, which is specifically designed for Final Cut Pro 10. Now, I'm demoing a pre-release version of the software, which means the software may change prior to its final release, and we may encounter a couple of instabilities before this demo is done. Boris FX has not yet announced a pricing or release date for the software. Boris FX was founded in 1995, and they are a leading developer of visual effects, compositing, titling, and workflow tools for broadcast, post-production, and film professionals. With more than 1 million users, their products work with software from Adobe, Apple, Avid, Corel, Grass Valley, Sony, and many others. Boris Continuum Complete version 8 is a brand new edition of the legendary Boris Continuum Complete. It has more than 200 filters, effects, and transitions all wrapped up into one package. It gives you precise control over hundreds of parameters, so you get exactly the effect that you want. It supports both Final Cut Pro 10 and Motion 5. And its new template system makes it easy to quickly review effects for the look that you want. You know, when you think about it, there are only two reasons to purchase a third-party plugin: to solve a problem or to create an effect that can't be created as easily any other way. My goal today is to showcase a few of the problems that we can fix and effects that we can create in BCC that we can't achieve using the effects in Final Cut Pro 10 alone. So specifically, I want to talk about BCC transitions, lens blur, which gives us some killer tilt-shift effects, video noise removal, removing iris flicker, all kinds of things that we can do with glows, motion tracking, and the incredible Beat Reactor. Let's get started and switch over to Final Cut Pro 10.
This is Final Cut Pro 10. I'm working with version 10.0.5, and we have a series of projects here. Let's take a look first at this on transitions. We'll just double-click the project to get started. By the way, just so you know, what I've done is we are not only doing the live stream for you to watch, but I'm also recording something that became pretty obvious right after the title slide. Anyway, I'm recording this. So what I've done to simplify things, and we've got a lot of some really sophisticated effects to show you, I've turned off background rendering. And the main reason is I just don't want to overload this computer I'm working on. And for those of you that are interested, I'm working with an iMac. It's got 8 gigs of RAM. It's about 1.5 years old. So we're not dealing with something which is all fire-breathing. This is just a vanilla flavor iMac that I'm running the software on. Be sure, by the way, to check Boris's website for compatibility with your hardware and your software, because you want to make sure that you can run this software on your particular computer system. We've got some sports footage here, a little bit of bicycle action going on, some exciting jumps going to baseball, and incredible, great stuff. Except we need to spice this up. I don't want to just simply have cuts. I want to do some transitions. So let's go to the transition browser. Notice there's a category called BCC 8 transitions. There are probably 8 to 12 transitions in here. There's this very cool shatter image which just blows everything up. Several music videos could probably use that. We've got glint wipes and we've got lens blur thingies, and the cool thing is because each of these is its own icon in the effects browser, it becomes really, really easy to skim over and see which ones you want. Well, I'm going to work with one that I've always enjoyed, which is a swish pan. Grab it and drag it over and drop it on top of the transition. By the way, it doesn't affect Boris at all, but there's these really cool icons at the top. Have you ever noticed those on a transition? If you grab this one, it allows you to trim the in of the incoming clip. This allows you to trim the out of the outgoing clip. This allows you to roll trim. So even if you've applied a transition to your clips, you can still trim by using those 3 icons at the top. That's very cool. I've always liked that in Final Cut 10 and thought I'd show it to you. I've parked the playhead on the actual transition itself, and we can see that we have what could best be called a swish pan. I'm going to play this, and for those of you that have got a high bandwidth connection, you're going to see that at real time. And if you've got a slower connection, I'll use the arrow key and step through. Notice that as soon as the transition starts, it starts to blur out. And the default setting for this transition is pretty cool. We can work with that. But what really sets Boris apart from all the other plugin developers that are out there is the amount of control that they give you over the actual settings inside the effect. Let me go to the inspector. Notice that I've selected the transition. Go to the inspector, and in this I have the ability to set the direction, left, top, bottom, right, so it moves the directions you want. I can set the amount of blur, really, really big blur, really, really not so much, and everywhere in between. But here's the cool thing. If I go right to the first frame of the transition and using the arrow key, I move in like 2 frames, it's already starting to get blurred. I can set an ease in start so that the blur starts early. In other words, the blur starts before the wipe occurs, or the blur starts late. So maybe I start the wipe first, and you can see it starting to come in here. We'll see the wipe start before the, sorry, my fault. This is the ease in. This allows me to do acceleration going in, acceleration coming out. I also have a blur delay. The blur delay allows me to delay the blur so the blur starts before the wipe, or the blur starts after the wipe. Notice I've got the wipe in here between the 2 shots. This gives us some very subtle moves where the blur starts. I'll add a little bit of an ease in here, and then go down to, let's see, watch this, play it. Look at that. It sort of vaporizes, and then it goes away. And again, if you're watching this on a slower bandwidth, be sure to download the recording later because you'll be able to see it at full speed in the recording. But this kind of control is far more than we're used to inside the standard transitions that we get inside Final Cut. Also, if I put my playhead in the middle here, back up a little bit with the arrow keys, and go, I can enable a wave. In other words, I can add an effect on top of an effect on top of the transition. I can have it, the wave height increase. These guys are liquefying as the transporter takes effect, or whatever happens. I can also add a glow. Now this is very cool. I may not be the world's biggest fan of the wave, but the glow is really cool. Not only can we do a simple wipe, swish pan, glow. I mean, look at that. That sucks the eyes out of your head and washes your eyeballs. This is doing great. Well, let's try something different. Let's go to here. Let's see. Go from the bicycles to baseball. Boom. He's getting ready to knock it out of the park. Let's add a different transition. Let's go to a glow flash. Drag that on. Put our playhead in the middle. I've got sort of a glowing effect here. If I use the arrow keys to move through, notice that the highlights around his outfit start to glow, and then the glow comes in from the outside. Look at that. Well, let's just park ourselves right in the middle and see what we can do to improve this. Not only can we increase the intensity of the glow, we can increase the softness of the glow. We can have it go to a glow color so that the whole thing flashes white in this very soft, gentle, cloud-like, dreamy state. See this blend mode? This is an actual big deal, and one of the things that you really need to pay attention to, because the blend mode gives you several options of screen and add and lighten. Be really, really careful for anything you're going to do for broadcast or cable. Don't use add. Add is always going to get your stuff in trouble. You want to use screen, and what screen does is it clamps your white levels to 100%, and you don't have the risk of super whites in your project. Most of these filters are very smartly set to screen to keep your white levels out of trouble. We could have this flash to a background color, a flash of white, or we could have this start in a region. Notice here that I want it to start maybe on the face of the batter. And now as I play this through, isn't that wonderful? A soft, gentle kind of look. And now here he's getting ready to hammer the ball out of the park. Well, let's do something that really showcases this. We'll add, let's add a raise flash. Drag that on. And now I'm going to just use the arrow key to move through. Notice that we're starting to see, coming off his white pants here, we're starting to see some light rays, and the white ball comes in. It's got a light ray trail behind it, and then he hits the ball, And, well, everything is just, it's great, radiating white in all directions. We can't do that in Final Cut 10. Let's select it. Let's go up to here. Let's add a little bit of intensity to the rays. Let's add a little bit of length to the rays. Let's back it just a bit, add a little bit of source blur. Now, here's another cool thing. When you're working inside Motion 5, Motion 5 has an outstanding keyframe engine. If you're really creating really tight keyframes, Motion 5 is the place you want to create your effect. When you're working in Final Cut 10, keyframing is entirely possible. It's just a little bit more awkward. So what Boris FX has done is they've added this thing called auto-animation. Let me show you what this is. If you go to the XY position and change it from use start position only, means that your light rays won't change. I want to auto-animate the start to the end. So I want to change the starting position of the light rays so that they radiate pointing to the right. And then I want to change the ending position of the light rays so they radiate pointing to the left. Look at that. Now watch this. I use the arrow keys to step through. We start to see the light rays explode coming off. Look at that. Look at that. The ball explosion occurs. The light rays are shifting in opposite directions. That's just as the ball comes in. Look at that. Is that cool or what? I mean, there's some neat stuff we can play with that just gives our transitions a little bit of life and a little bit of sparkle. Thinking of life and sparkle, many times we need to blur an image. So within Final Cut, there's a Gaussian lens blur. There's a Gaussian blur. And frankly, when you're using blurs in Final Cut, the blur that gives you the best results, the most consistent results within the effects inside Final Cut is the Gaussian blur filter. Clean, fast, smooth, does great work, and it blurs the image. But blurs the image. Notice how everything is equally soft. This doesn't look like you've defocused on a camera. It just looks like the image has gone soft. Many times I want to have a blur that looks like I took the lens and rack focused it out of focus. I want to see that in-camera blur. Well, that requires something different. It requires a lens blur. Let me illustrate. Let me just delete the Gaussian blur. This is our source clip here. There we go. And let's jump control apostrophe takes us to the next marker. Control semicolon takes us to the previous marker. We'll just jump to a marker here, select the clip. In this case, jump to the marker. And, oh, cool trick. If you hold the Option key down when you click on a clip, the Option key means that the playhead is not going to move. If I click here, notice how the playhead jumps, and it drives me nuts because I've got it parked on the marker. If you hold the Option key down when you click on a clip, the playhead doesn't move. Just sort of, and oh, by the way, add that to your, you could share that. You could share that trick with people at parties. I know how to prevent the playhead from moving in Final Cut 10. I'm sure it'll get you an extra drink. Anyway, let's go to the FX browser. I want to scroll down here, and we'll take a look at BCC color and blur. There's lots of things we can do. There's colorization, and there's color correcting, and all this sort of stuff. But I want to focus on the lens blur. Grab this icon, drag it on top. Because the clip was selected, I could double-click the clip, but I like dragging it to make sure it's going to go right to where I need it to go. Look at what's happened here. I don't have a blurry image. I have a blurry image, but I'm starting to see the shape of the iris here. I've got this six-sided shape, which is the kind of indicator you get when you lose focus using the lens of a camera, not blur it in software later. Well, this lens blur filter has got some incredible power associated with it. One of the things that's true of all the BCC filters is notice this line that says compare to original. If I set this up as a wipe, the left-hand side shows me the original image. The right-hand side shows me the affected image. And I can separate those by grabbing this wipe slider, dragging it left and right. But this is a really nice way of being able to say, do I like it the way it is now, or did I like it better the way it was before? Let's go back to full screen because this is just too cool to only see part of. We can change the size of the defocus, the size of the blur, by grabbing the iris scale. That really could be labeled the amount slider because it determines the amount of the blur. And now we're absolutely seeing what our iris looks like. We can scale it, blur it vertically, blur it horizontally. We can adjust the gamma setting, which allows us to adjust the mid-tone gray. But look at here. See where it says View Iris? This is the actual shape that we're using to generate the blur. We can pick other shapes. It can be a 3-sided shape. It could be a 12-sided shape. I tend to like 5-sided iris shapes, pentagons. We can add a little bit of curvature to it. We can make it rounded and make it more star-like. I like having it be just a little bit rounded to the outside, just to give us a little bit of an aberration here so it doesn't look so geometric that it looks unbelievable. We can also rotate it by grabbing the slash and dragging up and down. But now the magic starts. If I grab this bokeh and I drag it, I can add a little bit of texture to the image. In fact, I can add some additional shading by grabbing the bokeh shading and slide it up and down. Add a little bit of noise to it. And now I've got something which looks much more organic, much more real life. When I turn off the View Iris, look at how these look much more believable as opposed to simply a geometric shape that we're playing with. This ability to create something which approaches reality as opposed to simply a geometric interpretation of an image is just way cool. But, you know, I'm thinking about this. I'm blurring the entire full screen. There's a new kind of effect that you may have seen on the web. It's called lens tilt. What this is normally the light coming in from the lens hits the sensor at the back of the camera, and the focal plane of the light coming in from the lens is equal to the focal plane of the sensor. The benefit is the entire picture is in focus, which is something I tend to encourage. But what happens if you put that lens on a special mount and it no longer hits the focal plane of the lens no longer hits the entire sensor, it hits just a piece of it. You get part of the image in focus and part of the image out of focus. That's what a lens tilt blur is an intersection of focused and out of focus parts of the image. For instance, here, this is obviously a cityscape, and if I play it, we've got a helicopter tracking shot around the city. One of the fastest ways I know of to turn a city into a model or to create a sense of surreality is to add a lens tilt effect. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I go to here and I add the lens blur effect, okay, I've blurred the entire image. I'm going to scroll down here, leave all the settings the same, scroll down to the very bottom, and notice there's a thing called the zmapp gradient. I'm going to set this to mask defocused pixels. Notice that across the center, there's no red. This part of the image will be in focus. Where the red part exists is a gradual defocusing of the image, so the outer edges are really out of focus, and the inner edges are gradually coming into focus, and we've got this slice in the center, which is in focus. This just creates magical effects. Well, let me just do a couple things here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to grab the direction here, and notice that I can rotate the in focus. Let me have it rotate so it equals like a city street right around in there. Now my focus is going from the upper left to the lower right. That which is out of focus is in the red, that which is in focus. And just because I want to do this for dramatic results, I'm going to increase the iris scale just a little bit, make it even more out of focus. Now watch what happens. I'm going to grab the zmapp, I'm going to turn it on, and poof. Look at that. Is that not incredible? You're able to take anything and turn it into a lens tilt effect as though you had created it with a specially rigged camera and do it totally in software. Look at this. If I go back to this original shot, select the clip, go down to the bottom, and turn on zmapp gradient. Look at that. Our cars are in focus. Our stoplights are out. And if you want to change it, grab this position slider, drag it straight up. There we go. The lights are in focus, and all the traffic is out of focus. Think of the creative possibilities this provides. This, I was having the world's best time in rehearsal the last couple of days just playing with this. There's some cool stuff here. Thinking of cool stuff reminds me that sometimes in order to get cool stuff, we got to solve problems. And this is a really good example of video noise. Let me make this bigger. I'm going to go to 200% and just scale up just a bit. Okay. See this mottled color, this graininess? The problem of shooting under low light conditions when you've got a really, really small sensor is that you end up adding so much video noise because you're pushing the ISO setting. You're doing a +3, +6, +12 on your video setup, and what that does is it just simply magnifies the amount of video noise. The problem is, at some point, it gets really, really ugly. There's a filter, a image correction, image restoration filter that solves this. In fact, there's a whole category in BCC called image restoration. I want to talk about that for a second. We have the ability to remove dust and scratches and clean up DV images, and these are all wonderful, but the one I want to focus on is there's a thing called the BCC noise reducer spatial and noise reduction temporal, and one that's both temporal and spatial. In this particular example, because I really wanted to show this because it's sometimes hard to see, you feel it instantly, but it's hard to see and analyze. I picked a still image. When you're working with a still image, you want to work with spatial. When you're working with multiple frames strung together like video, you want to work with temporal. So, and then you also have the ability to have both temporal, means over time, or spatial within the image. So I'm going to grab the spatial filter and drag it on top of the clip. It loads the filter. Let's select the clip. And this time I'm going to go to the noise reduction filter, and I am going to turn on the wipe. And let's pull this up here just a bit. There we go. Put it right in the center. We adjust the smoothing by grabbing this slider and smoothing it out. Now look really closely here. Let me go up a little bit bigger, see if we can see this. Notice the graininess over here, the mottled characteristic. Notice how smooth it is over here. We don't see the video noise. The video noise is on the left. It adds mottled, unpleasant characteristics to the video, and it's gone on the right. Now this is more than just a blur filter, because the thing that makes this important is that you need to keep your foreground, you need to keep detail, you need to keep sharpness. So I've got a nice clean sky on the right, notice the grain on the left, and I haven't lost detail in my buildings. We can adjust the amount of smoothing. I'm smoothing this a fair amount here because you can make this really glossy, or you can simply decrease it so it's not quite so in your face. It works within a YCBCR space, so I could adjust, say, the luminance value or the color level. I can turn off softening. This will sharpen up the details. Notice the balconies on that building right here. You can adjust it so that they do blur. I prefer to run this with softening off. We can also add sharpening. We can add sharpening just to the grayscale, which is what I recommend, or you could add sharpening to grayscale and color. I tend to recommend sharpening on grayscale because you don't get the color artifacts when you sharpen on YCBCR. We'll leave sharpening off for right now. We can adjust the amount of the sharpening. We can even adjust Illumimat, which allows us to say, I want the color smoothing, I want this to occur in the highlights and not occur in the shadows, or have it be in the shadows and not be in the highlights. It allows me to get rid of grain that's in the dark shadows without affecting highlight detail. Some tremendous control. And if this is too smooth, one of the other features that we have in film style, BCC film style, is that we have film grain. I could grab film grain, grab this on top, and get rid of the ugly modeling and add the soft grain that we see with film. That could be added to our picture to smooth everything out. Remember I said I was working with beta software and working with Final Cut 10. This is one of the things that happens as we start to experiment with stuff. So let's just restart and pick up with something. Oh, this next one. You should see this next one. Talks about glows. We have image restoration. We have the ability to remove film. We have the ability to remove grain and remove noise with our images, but there's more we can do with image restoration, and that is, wow, now it is going crazy. Stand by. There's 17 developers on the other end of this conference call that are sweating rivets right now, so hang on, we'll get this back. Here's another issue. This is a flicker filter. If we watch this time lapse of the clouds, it looks okay, but it feels unsteady. And what's happening is we're shooting that time lapse with an auto iris. If I open up the scopes, go to Window, Show Video Scopes, and I switch this to a waveform, we'll just hide this over here, give ourselves some room to work. There we go. Watch as I play this back, especially watch this bottom line here in the scope, and notice how it's moving up and down. This is caused by an auto iris taking a scene, and the iris is starting to tweak video levels, and your video levels start pulsing, and it causes some real problems. What we want to do is we need to stabilize that auto iris, and there's an image restoration setting that does that, and it's inside BCC Image Restoration, and it's called the Flicker, BCC Flicker Fix, and it has temporal, which means over time, and frame analysis. I'm going to do frame analysis. Just drop this on, open up the inspector, and this time I'm going to select the clip, and we will watch a side-by-side comparison. And because I want this to be able to play in real time, I'm going to select the clip, go up to the Modify menu, go down to Render Selection, because I want it to render the entire effect because it'll play back a bit more smoothly. Notice on the left is the clip squished a little bit so it fits on the frame. It plays this is the unprocessed side. It's this side of the scope. And this is the processed side. It's this side, the right side of the scope. Now, when I'm doing this in real life, I would never have it render side by side because, you know, you don't want to see the processed and unprocessed. But in this particular case, it helps me to be able to see that and show it to you. Watch what happens. Watch how the left side, which is not processed by the filter, bounces. Look at the movement up and down. Look at how steady it is over here. As we watch this play back, look at how this tends to have flashes of light and dark, whereas the one on the right is much more stable, much more pleasing. Well, all we had to do is to drop that Flicker Fix Frame Analysis filter on top, leave the default settings alone, although you can mess with them, you don't have to. Just drop it on and it automatically smooths stuff out. Notice these position controls. What they allow me to do is to say I want to reduce the flicker of a portion of the frame. Those two dots define a rectangle which can be drawn anywhere in the frame. So maybe you've got a candle in the scene. You don't want to reduce the flickering around the candle, but maybe you do want to reduce the flickering on the wall or whatever. If you ever need to have a filter applied to a portion of the frame, those dots allow that to be controlled. Let's try something different. So image control. We've got image restoration to get rid of video noise. We can get rid of flickers. We can get rid of dust and scratches. But let's get back to the really exciting stuff. Remember, everything that we're showing you is built into Boris Continuum Complete version 8. Everything is in the package. There's hundreds of filters and effects inside the package, and I'm only isolating on like 10 of them today. So all this stuff arrives in one giant, wonderful Christmas present under your tree. Very neat stuff. All in one package. All right, let's hide the video scopes because we're done with that. This is a glow filter. It's the glow filter that ships with Final Cut 10. And if I select the clip and go up to the glow filter, what we can do here is we can adjust the amount of the glow, that's no glow, up to full glow. Okay, I can't tell you how thrilled I am. Looks really just average. Let's go back to here. Let me show what a glow filter can do. If I go back to BCC, let's see, where do I want to be? I want to be in glows. And film style, I think, basic film glow. There we go. So we're going to grab this and drag it on. Look at the softness of that glow. Compare the glow there and the glow here. Look at how much more soft and organic and glowy that is. Again, we'll take a look at it in a wipe. Unglow on the left with the glow on the right. We can set the threshold. The threshold means how light or dark does something have to be in order to glow. When you drag this to the right, only the brightest highlights glow. When you drag this to the left, midtones start to glow, and drag it all the way to the left, everything glows. Well, take this back. By the way, see this hooky thingy up here, that hooky arrow? That's your reset arrow. Resets everything back to its default setting. And I used that a lot as I was rehearsing because I would get myself so far afield I couldn't figure out how to get back. So I just reset back to the defaults and keep on keeping on. Radius is sort of how soft it's going to be. When the radius is small, the glow is focused. When the radius is large, the glow is amorphous. We can even change the glow color. We could make our clouds contain dark rain, or evening glow from sunset, or maybe oobleck. I'm the only one that gets the oobleck joke, but I like that book. Let's move farther down. Again, notice that the apply mode is screen. I point this out because there's a couple where it's set to add, and you want to just make sure that it's always set to screen. But here's another thing we can do. We can adjust scaling. Oh, look at this. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Look at the controls that we get. Look at how we can play with this. Oh my gracious. All kinds of stuff. We can set regions. Here, look at this. See where it says source region? We can make the entire frame glow, or we could set this to a circle. And we can control where that circle is parked. For instance, maybe hiding behind that cloud is a spaceship, and the spaceship is causing the cloud to glow because of the wild spaceship radiation coming out from it. Or the spaceship is moving. We can keyframe this, of course. The spaceship is moving from one cloud to another. Or we could change this to a line. We have a line of communication. We could even rotate this. Let's see. We could rotate this. Look at that. Beam me up, Scotty. There's nothing intelligent down here. I rest my case. And then, oh, look at this. Another cool one. See a gradient? The gradient allows me to, this part is not glowing, this part is glowing. Let's change the gradient. Let's cause the rotation here. Let's just drag this and rotate it so it lights up the clouds. Okay, let's set this to -90. We could just type in a value. You can also click, hold, and drag up and down. When you're on the number, just click and drag the number. And I'll grab the position, set this down here so our clouds are glowing and the surface is not. Well, here's another thing we can do. If I select the clip, go up to the Edit menu, go down to Copy, Command-C, select a new clip like this. We can paste all the filters from the first clip into the second by selecting Paste Effects. Paste Effects, it's Option Command-V, and select it, and there it is. I've now pasted that glow. I want to change this glow. I want to just have it be glowing for the sun, right about there. I don't want it to glow for the waves. And select this. Let's add a little bit more radius here, make that softer. Look at that. Does that not look like the molten summer sun setting upon the Caribbean island of your dreams when you're compare? This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. Look at that. It's just amazing the things you can do with this, to be able to soften an image and improve the look and do it in a very organic way that we just can't do any other way. Here's another cool one. This is a piece of stock footage, and I've decided that these beautiful people who are going to the opera this evening and going to have a wonderful time, I've decided that we need to hide the fact that there's a sub-story going on here. Boom, boom, boom. He is masquerading as a rich businessman. He's actually some sort of ne'er-do-well in our script, and we need to mask his identity. We need to hide the witness, except the witness is moving is the problem. How am I supposed to hide him? I'm going to have to keyframe the heck out of this. Wrong. There is built into many of the effects inside BCC a motion tracker. So we're going to apply a filter called witness protection, which allows us to mask the identity of anything, and we're going to use the motion tracker, which is built into that effect, to track without me having to do keyframes across the entire image. Here's how it works. I'm going to go up to where it says color and blur and scroll down, and there's BCC witness protection. Now we'll put this in here. And this determines what we're going to be masking. So I'll grab this dot, drag it over, and put it on top of his face. And notice that his face is now blurry. Now this forms an oval shape, and we don't have an ideal clip here because it's going to pick up a piece of her face, because I have to work with a geometric shape for this, but I'm going to put it right in the center. When I select the clip and go up to the video tab inside the inspector, we can change the effect from a blur to a mosaic. And we can change the size of the mosaic by grabbing this and dragging. So we can really make him truly impossible to see. We can even scramble the pixels so that the pixels are just randomly assorted. So we now have his face blurred. Except as I play this clip, we have a problem in that he walks right out of that blur. We got to fix that. That's where the motion tracker comes in. So we're going to scroll farther down. We can control the amount of the blur. We can control randomization, and we can control the radius and all that sort of stuff. But what I want to do is to go farther down and see where it says Tracker Analysis Mode. Turn that on. As I look at any object that needs tracking, you want to track on a portion of the object that's attached to that which is moving, and there's a high contrast level between the different elements. For instance, I couldn't track against, say, her arm here because there's nothing on her arm that differentiates it. I could, for instance, track on her earring, but it's not her face that we want to track, it's his face. A really nice area to track is this hairline right here, especially the corner of his hairline. So I'm going to grab this and drag the tracker and put it right up against the corner of his hairline. We can adjust the size of the tracker with the target width and the search width, but the default settings are, for this particular example, okay. The problem is that I'm working with a high-resolution version of the clip, and things tend to bog down. So what I did is, prior to this example, I selected this clip, I went up to File, I went down to Transcode Media, and I transcoded this to a proxy file. So I switch between original media or optimized media and proxy files by going up to Final Cut Pro, go down to Preferences, and inside the playback window, change this from Use Original or Optimized Media, which means high quality, to Proxy Media. Now here, I don't have proxy files, but here I do. So now I've linked to that proxy file, which is going to decrease the work that my tracker has to do. And the cool thing is, whether you track off a proxy file or track off the master file, in either case, the tracking works perfectly as you switch between proxy and optimized media. Okay, so now we're ready to start tracking. We're going to hit the play button. And as we do, notice that a green line appears across the bottom. This indicates how the track is being done. The image itself may not move because built into BCC is a process called look ahead. It will look at the file that's on your hard disk without first having to play it inside Final Cut. So it looks like it's just sort of stalled there for a bit. Don't panic and don't hit the escape key. It's doing a lot of work in the background to be able to generate that motion track. And you can see the motion track is this line here. Now as I play this, look at the tracker. It moves right with his head, and they just leave the frame. Okay, so now that we've got that done, let's scroll back down again, turn off the calculation of the track because it's been done. There's the mosaic. Let's just go up to where it says region offset X. We're going to move that a little bit to the right. And we're going to move it down by region offset Y, so we cover his face. All right, and now I'll hit the space bar. And look at that. It tracks right with him without me having to do a thing. For those of you on slow bandwidth, I'll just use the arrow key and just sort of move through here. Look at that. It tracks smoothly. I didn't have to set any keyframes. Is that cool or what? Oh my goodness, remember how hard it used to be to set keyframes manually? We'd be there all night. The client says, just it's a small change, just, keyframe it. Hours later, we're still entering stupid keyframes for the stupid effect. That's very cool. I like that a lot. Thinking of cool, this one is amazing. Notice that it says proxies missing. That's because I didn't create a proxy file for this. Go up to Final Cut Pro, go down to Preferences, go back to Original or Optimized Media. We're back to the high resolution value. Here, our guy is dancing. Beautiful. I tell you, it leaves me breathless watching him dance. Several things happened here. He was dancing, and I didn't get the music. They didn't share it with me, so I found a piece of music that's kind of cool. We got this salsa beat going, and then I adjusted his speed until the beat of the music and the beat of his dance matched, because we can. How did I do that? I just simply selected the retiming feature, slowed him down to 84% to give him some balletic movement and get the beats to time out, and we then match the music up. The music, by the way, is courtesy of Smart Sound, and the footage, by the way, all this footage is courtesy of Boris FX, so they pulled some great clips for us to play with. Okay, what I want to do here is I want to add an effect. This is a music video. We want to add some music video effects. See this bright window back here? I want to add some, I want to add a light ray that comes through the window. Well, except I want the light rays to change as the music changes. So how do we do that? We add a brand new filter which has not yet seen the light of day. Select the clip. We're going to go down to Film Style. I think it's here. Hang on, I got to look at my note. Of course it isn't. It's under Lights, because it's the light we want to mess with. Now we have edge lighting here. Notice how we've added a color to the edges. We've got a glare. We have a glint. He's a sparkling personality. We have light sweeps, lightning. I mean, lightning is very important, perhaps not for a dance, but it's really, how could you live without it? And we've got puffy rays and stage lights, but the one I want to work with is light rays. I'm going to grab the light rays and drag it on top here. Notice already we've started to get some glowing coming in from that window. In addition, I want to change the ray length and get this thing to just sort of flood the room. Let's just increase the intensity just a bit. There we go. Make this thing pop. Let's put it down to around 20, I think. Keep it a little bit darker. Keep the ray length up. Okay, now, so far what we have is we just have the music, sorry. So far what we have is we have light rays coming in the window, and it picks up on this haze we've got up here with the smoke. We got the music, we got the energy of him dancing, but we don't have an integration yet between the audio and the picture. To do that, we're going to scroll down and enable Beat Reactor. What Beat Reactor does is it allows us to connect the video effect with an audio clip. It says I haven't selected an external media file. Let's do that. So we're looking for the Thief of Salvador. We'll click on the external file, and we'll go to our desktop, and there's the Thief of Salvador, and click Open. Look at this. It's displayed a graph that shows the frequencies of that audio as it plays back. Let's just watch this for a second. So video frames were dropped. That doesn't surprise me. I see a lot of dropped frames when something has not yet been rendered. So it's just because the CPU is having a hard time keeping up with all these unrendered effects. And as we drag across here, notice that the frequency response changes. I've got a display of the audio levels over here. I have frequencies over here. So I can trigger this effect based upon the audio level, or I could trigger it based on frequency, based on the left, mid-tones and mid and the highs, treble over here on the right. In this particular case, I want to drive it with the mids right around in here, the low mids. So I'm going to grab this shape. I'm going to drag this shape over because I want to have it get triggered whenever the frequencies enter this box. So this is going to trigger the effect. This is like our low frequency noise here. Okay. So now that's the first thing I'm going to do. Big trigger here. Less something over here. Okay, there, almost nothing. So let's just see what happens. Now the next thing we're going to do is we want to have this add to the intensity, and we want to have it add to the length. We can show the graph, or we can decrease the graph so it becomes just sort of a visual element. Notice that we're seeing the light start to play here, but now the graph is getting in the way, so we'll turn the graph off. And let's go back up to, I got to change the direction. I want to change the light source. I want to have the light come in the window and hit him, so I'm going to change the light source value so the rays of light are coming in through the window, there we go, and aiming more at him. All right, let's just try this and see what happens. So what we're doing is we are changing the value of this light glow based upon the frequencies of the music. Well, let's just try a different one just because it's here, and Dirk worked so hard to put it together. I hate to have him not be successful with it. So let's just turn out, that's not that one. Let's do this one down here. This is it. All right, so we'll try that one. Different piece of much more dramatic music. And this time we'll go down to set our external file, click it, and we'll go to the looping bed right here and play a different kind of music. The beat reactor is everywhere. In other words, I can take and create a new effect in motion, and I can combine beat reactor, I can combine light glows, I can provide glints, in other words, you can combine multiple BCC elements in a single effect inside motion, save that as a template, and have it come in as a customized effect inside Final Cut. So let's just take one more look here and see what we've got. We should have our audio all selected. There it is. Where to go? Checkbox. There it is. And let's just play this and see which one it's hooked to. Okay, it's hooked to the wrong one. Don't warn me again. We'll just try that again. And we'll go to the looping bed. And we'll show the graph and pick up the bass. And select our clip. Notice that here it doesn't pick anything up because the frequencies haven't just go over here and go over there and pull that down just a bit. There we go. Now when we play this, the benefit that we have here is that we've got complete control over the frequencies we want to use, complete control over the effect, and it gives us the ability to have audio drive video effects. It doesn't have to be music. It could be somebody talking. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain and the flames go crazy. The power that we have inside the Boris Continuum Complete is amazing, and there are so many filters to choose from. By the way, remember I said that we're working with a pre-release package. Don't panic over all these anomalies. We're working with cutting-edge software here. The guys at Boris are going to have this work. I'm not at all worried about instability when the package actually ships. It's going to be a cool, cool package and absolutely worth waiting for.
The power, flexibility, and capability of the new Boris Continuum Complete make it an essential tool for solving problems and creating effects in Final Cut Pro 10. Plus, you can access all this power in Motion 5, which allows you to create an unlimited number of custom effects, all built on the BCC Effects engine, and then use them as many times as you want in Final Cut Pro 10. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for watching this special webinar.